Tigers and the Kansas Jayhawks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mizzou Border War podcast. Let's go. I'm Jarrett Sutton, my co-host Jeff Hawkins, repping the Jayhawks strong. Jeff, we already talked about this, man. I got to change my background. You're already winning this podcast.
Yeah,
I got
a bunch
of artwork behind me, man. You got you got your action shot behind you from back in your day.
Hey, well,
Dang,
I know.
man.
I know you're gonna come ready, and I'm not gonna know what to expect next pod we have next week on what your background's gonna look like. So I know you're probably gonna be. I kind of gave you some of my insights, so I know you're gonna be ready to one up me, man.
It's looking good. You got the KC Sports Network gear rocking, man. You got to roll this first podcast. I love it. We're presented by 360 Vodka here with the Kansas City Sports Network. Tucker Franklin rocking with the operation. Always grateful for having this network and this podcast to talk about some college basketball. Jeff, we got a lot to get to, man. We're 2 weeks in roughly to the college basketball season. No, you're coaching. You got a lot going on as well. We've been on the road trying to get this podcast off the ground. So excited to be with you, man. I thought what we could do, and just so our listeners know, this is going to be a podcast that really centers on our two alma maters, Kansas and Mizzou. The programs, obviously a Mizzou-Kansas game coming up here. God, we're almost, 10, 12 days away from that game in Allen Fieldhouse. So that'll be a fun one to be in Lawrence for that one. But I think a good first podcast to kind of just talk about the teams and how the start of this season has gone. A lot of expectations, I think, going into the year for Kansas, a lot of unknown really for Missouri and players that either graduated, moved on, or transferred. Kind of a whole different look to the Mizzou team. For Kansas, Ochai Agbaji back, playing really well. Yeah, I think Jeff, playing like Ochai Agbaji has always, what I've wanted to see from Ochai Agbaji, I should say. A guy that is super talented, super athletic, shot maker, a guy that, really just has had to kind of take on that aggressive bulldog alpha dog mentality. And Ochai, I know Ochai, great dude. He's always been a role player in his entire career, high school. Now he's the dude, and he's playing that way. I want to start there and just kind of what you're seeing from Ochai Agbaji, knowing he's been, arguably not just the best player probably for Kansas, but one of the better players in the Big 12, and a guy that really jumped on the scene in that Champions Classic with the performance he had against Michigan State, where he was great on both ends of the floor. So what are you seeing from Ochai, and how excited should KU fans be about Ochai to start the year?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of covering Ochai, with the pregame, postgame shows, ever since he was a freshman. So being able to see him get his first go at it, pulling his red shirt, and then him just having this unbelievable year. Year two for Ochai, he kind of had a little bit of a setback. Everybody thought he was going to have this bang like he did that first year, and he kind of had a little bit of step back. He put his name in for the draft recently just to kind of test the waters, got some feedback. But this year it's a different Ochai. You can tell he took that advice, when he went to the summer and worked with did summer workouts with the NBA teams. He took that advice and he started working on his game. He's been much more of a scoring threat as far as getting to the rim, being a playmaker, and obviously his athleticism. I think that's one of the things that stands out the most, even when he started out as a freshman, his athleticism. So I think a lot of KU fans, you asked about that. They're very excited about Ochai just because of, they've seen his growth throughout the years. And, now he's in a road to where he's the man. He's putting the team on his shoulders. He's making the big plays. At one point in time, he was averaging 26 a game. So that has dropped a little bit over the last couple of games. But he started out the season with a bang, and Jayhawk fans have a lot to look forward to with Ochai.
One of the things I've seen with Ochai too is he's always shown improvement over his years at KU, but it seems like this year he's been aggressive in all the right ways. Meaning there is a difference of being aggressive and taking a bunch of bad shots and just having the green light at all times. You know how that is when you play with a guy like that sometimes. There's a guy that probably should have the green light, but it still feels like Ochai is being aggressive while taking the right shots, knowing the system. I think that all comes with experience, right? knows the system,
Yeah.
and Coach Self is also believing in him and allowing him to do that. But that takes a lot of trust, as you know. And I think Ochai's done a really good job in terms of you don't really see him shoot a lot of bad ones
Yeah.
in the games that I've watched. And again, when a player is that aggressive, they're probably going to take one or two that you think, that might not have been the right shot or a good shot. But
Yeah.
sometimes it is the right shot, especially with the way Ochai's improvement has been putting the ball on the floor, shooting off the dribble. He's got a step back now in his game, like you touched on. So it just seems like he's embracing the role, and he's playing with pace, he's playing with poise, but it's also his shot IQ. It's knowing when to put the ball on the floor, how to read screens, all those things that, an experienced veteran player can really bring to the table, especially with what we're seeing so far.
And you talked about it best, shot IQ. That's really huge. And obviously shot IQ, wanting to get to that next level, that NBA level, that's a huge component in your game that you have to be able to do. When to take good shots, when not to take good shots. And I think Ochai has really figured that out. I know Coach Self, from doing the pregame, I did the pregame, postgame today for the game tonight against Iona today. And Coach Self really talked about between Ochai and CB, being aggressive, getting to the free throw line. So I know that Ochai is definitely, like you've mentioned, he's been aggressive in so many ways, picking and choosing the right shots. But I know Coach Self is out there wanting him to be a little bit more aggressive, getting to the free throw line. And like you mentioned earlier, if that's taking one or two quote unquote bad shots, I think he's okay with that as long as he's staying aggressive, trying to get to the free throw line.
There's a couple other things I wanted to hit on with just the Kansas team going into the year, and then kind of what we're seeing so far. Obviously, getting Remy Martin was a big get this offseason, and it's been talked about publicly a little bit. You see it in games. Remy has that ability to go off script, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing, in Bill Self's system too. But has a really good ability to score. But you'd also, you look at DeJuan Harris and the growth that he has shown at the point guard position. I think one of the better passers on that Kansas team, and a guy that really knows the point guard position. I think the point guard position of how Bill Self views it, of a guy that can really get the team in their half court offense, knows when to push tempo, those type of things. And I think it's been a good, starting five that Bill Self went with. There was a lot of conversation of who would be your starting point guard, and they're kind of rolling with Remy and DeJuan. And your background as a lead guard as well, that seems to be a good fit right now, wouldn't you say? Or how do you view that in terms of how they've really come out with that starting five?
It is. I like it. Obviously, with DeJuan, you mentioned it. DeJuan can just get to anywhere on the court that he wants to. He's very versatile. He's a pass first guy. I know, talking with a lot of the team and a lot of the coaches, they want DeJuan to shoot more. And obviously, I think a lot of Jayhawk Nation would too, because the more he can stretch the defense, the more he's going to be able to pick apart the defense. But DeJuan's great, and obviously with Remy coming from Arizona State, where he just got to play any kind of style he wanted to. It was just give Remy the ball, let him play make, and everybody just if he passes it to you, he passes it to you. Be ready. If not, Remy's going to take the shot in. But he was successful at that, and I think that's what made Remy's name as popular as what it was. Obviously, he came into the field house and did some damage as well too. But Remy, the cool thing about that, Remy played today, and a lot of Jayhawk fans have really been kind of on him for taking bad shots, playing that Arizona State style of play, and it just takes time. Coach Self is pretty good from all the time I've been there. And the players that I've known that have come after me, Coach Self's undefeated as far as getting guys to do it his way. So Remy's slowly figuring it out, what to do. He had a really awesome game today. If you look at the game before the loss against Dayton, he had 17 points and I think 0 assists. Today he had 11 points in only shooting 6 shots. And he had 5 assists. So I think he's starting to figure it out a little bit more as he gets going. But I know for Remy, it's probably been a little bit challenging. For Coach Self, it's probably been a little bit challenging. But still, at the end of the day, I think both guys, they have an end goal in mind. The same end goal in mind is to go as far as they can deep into the postseason. So I think they're figuring it out at some point.
You know, it's funny when we talk about this game. The term of a role is so important in
Yeah.
basketball, right? And we just talked about Ochai's role. Now we're talking about Remy and like the transfer, right?
Yeah.
And it's a totally different
Yeah.
adjustment, especially when you're coming to Kansas with the ultimate goal to win games and compete for
Yeah.
national championship, right? You got to. That's a huge sacrifice of, maybe it's not taking 15 shots a game.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not scoring 19, to dish the ball around. You got some other pieces around. You got some shooters around you
Yeah.
that can really make the offense go. Another guy that I'm thinking about with this team that I think is so important, and it was so good to see him break through over these last 3 games, is Christian Brown.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a guy that is a great athlete. I think he's a
Mhm.
very good athlete. I
Yeah.
think he's smart.
Mhm.
I think he is a guy that plays his role and doesn't make mistakes. But with the same token being, at times he takes the foot off the gas a little bit, right? If he misses a couple
Yeah.
shots,
Yeah.
he's got to stay aggressive. And it
Yep.
seems like Christian, and I think he's leading Kansas in rebounding. He's had games where
Yep.
he's been over
Yeah.
7 rebounds. I mean, he can do a lot of things. You look up at the stat sheet and he's getting steals, deflections, rebounds. So he's doing all the things that obviously Coach Self is going to want to keep a player on the floor. But I still believe in his ability to make shots and be a weapon offensively,
Yeah.
playing off of Ochai, playing off of Remy, playing off Dewan. I think Christian is that guy that can really take this team to the next level as that second, third piece, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. Because I think he's ready to take his role
Yeah.
to another level. Is that
Yeah.
how you see it with Christian, or
No.
what's your thought on that?
No, you hit it right, man. We did a lot of talking again today on the pregame, postgame show, Game Day Live today, and we talked a lot about Christian, and obviously, like you said, these last 3 games he's been on a roll. And when you mean on a roll, he's done it from points, he's done it from rebounds, he's done it from assists, and he's done it from a steal standpoint. He's been averaging over these last 3 games about 2 to 4 steals per game. So he's done it in every aspect. And like you said, there's some times where if his shot's not going, he could slip away, fade away. And, that's something I think that if he can continue to have this success, be aggressive like you talked about, because that's where it's at. I think if he can continue to stay aggressive, no matter what, if shots are falling, because that was something that Coach Self said as well. Christian, CB, and Ochai being aggressive, getting to the free throw line. So if the shot's not falling from the 3-point, which that's such a delicate shot, about that shot.
Oh, heck yeah!
If it's not falling, man, you're like, if you're not doing anything on the defensive end, you're like, what am I doing out here? So being able to stay aggressive and get to the free throw line can allow you to get that rhythm. So if he can stay more aggressive, I think his game, because CB's had the green light since the freshman year, and I'm like, geez, I wish I could have had the green light. I would have just shoot. I'll be shooting till the coach says stop.
Yep,
so
yep.
Hopefully he can adapt to that and take that.
If it feels like leather, Jeff, it feels like leather.
No, for real. For real.
That's right. If it feels like leather, man, shoot it. That was like my mentality. But I'm with, if you're not making shots though in college basketball, as you know, how are you going to impact the game in other ways? And that's the one thing I've always appreciated about Christian is he's never going to stop defending, and that's why he's on the floor. He's not predicated on offense, right? I mean, and it's a good thing. That's something coaches will love. But at the same time, he misses a couple shots. He's got to stay with that. And I think he's got a lot of confidence in with his teammates. But you're talking about a guy that should be on the floor 33, 34 minutes a night. He's got to give them consistent offense. He's been really good from the field. I mean, he's been very efficient, but the 3-point shot, you can tell, he's got to see that ball go through the net a couple times to kind of get him. I've seen him where, we saw him his freshman year have games where, he hits 4 or 5 threes. He's fully capable.
Yeah.
But it's that confident. Ochai Agbaji went through the same thing, right? As a freshman and sophomore. There's just times where you go through those slumps and you got to stay with it and stay aggressive for your team. So one of the things too with this team, the Jalen Wilson conversation, obviously missed first few games. He's coming back. I think with this KU team, we're still learning about this KU team because I think Jalen Wilson, when we look up and it's January and February, I'm always curious what this rotation is going to look like for Kansas off the bench, because obviously Jalen is a guy that does a lot of things well. That's going to help this team in terms of production. And so that's another thing to keep in mind. And I don't think Jalen's gotten off his feet yet right now, and just some of his game action, starting to get his win underneath him. Probably not the Jalen Wilson we've grown accustomed to seeing, but I still think that's within him. Do you kind of see that as well? Let's see where this Kansas team is here in the next few games as we keep working through this non-conference schedule with Jalen coming back.
Oh yeah, Coach Self, he's been toying around with 11 guys trying to figure out the perfect rotation. Sometimes he feels, he's messed up the flow of the game because he's trying to figure out this rotation, which I think, as a coach, I think that's a great problem to have. Like, man, I got an 11-man rotation I'm trying to figure out. So he's obviously trying to figure that side of things out with the rotation. And, speaking on Jalen Wilson, Jalen obviously has some off the court issues that set him back. So obviously mentally he's going to have to, be able to get past that, put it behind him, focus on what Coach Self needs, get his win back like you talked about. But I think Jalen's a guy that in time, he's been struggling, trying to find his way right now. And you got to expect that when you have a setback, you're going to have to try to find your way. But I know he's going to have he has great teammates, great coaching staff, just everybody in a whole, they're going to rally around him. They're going to be trying to push, get the best out of him. And it's just, it's going to boil down to Jalen, how fast can he put away, that negative issue and find a way to start turning a negative into a positive. But I think Jalen has a big ceiling.
No question. Yeah, I agree. I think Jalen's got a side that can help this. But I was just sitting here looking at the box score from the Iona win. You got 7 guys that came off the bench. I know it was a game where, Kansas put up 96, but I'm a Zach Clements fan. I know we'll see where he's at come the end of the year. I think Bobby Pettiford has KJ Adams is a great athlete, high energy guy. I know Coach Self leans on the experience, the veterans early on in the year, but I'm curious which freshmen are going to really emerge, right? Like what freshmen are really going to step up and play well. And I think, there's a lot of conversation around Bobby Pettiford. And, I think Coach Self really likes him a lot. Gritty, tough, blue collar guard, really physical. I'm really in the rotation is what I'm looking at most for Kansas. They're going to win games. They got all the pieces to score, to be good on both ends of the floor. It's a great problem to have. It's what you said.
It is.
It's a great problem.
I don't know
to have
any coach that wouldn't want that problem for sure.
Yep.
But like you even said, Bobby Pettiford, and you got Joseph Yesufu. It's a lot of guys that are really at that guard position, even those freshmen competing for minutes, because, Coach Self normally sticks to a 8-man. He loves that 7-man, 8-man type rotation. Sometimes he might dip into 9 if 8's messing up or not serious today. He'll mess with 9. Trust me, I've kind of floated throughout 8, 9. I've been all the way at the end with Coach Self. So, but he's just like, hey, next man, whoever's ready to play. That's the cool thing about Coach Self. Who's ever ready to play, you will get your shot. Because somebody's gonna miss an assignment. Something's gonna happen to where you're gonna get your shot. You just got to be ready for it.
Yep. Let's shift gears. Talk about the other side of the coin here with the Missouri Tigers and their start. They're 3-3 on the year, and look, already a challenging start for Conzo Martin. Obviously, the talk around the Mizzou fan base is the loss to UMKC, right? Lose at home to UMKC. Your second game in, they did get a good win against SMU. I think it was a good win for them and how they fought back. I think that the thing that the reason why I circled the SMU game is just how you look at the halves in that game. Missouri had 18 points in the first half, really struggled, and then came out and played significantly better in the second half, scored 44, 46 points, and then had a good overtime period where they had 18 in the overtime period to win the game. They're very inconsistent offensively. We just talked about depth, Jeff, with the Kansas side and a lot of options. Not that many options, I think, for Conzo Martin in terms of depth in his rotation. And honestly, I think Ronnie DeGray, who is probably, his sixth man, he should be a starter. I think, when you talk about starting lineups, there's always the starters. And then you look up and see who's playing that final 4-minute period, who's on the floor. And Ronnie DeGray has to be on the floor for Missouri. He's a transfer, very versatile, good rebounder, can shoot
Yeah.
it, can do a lot of things. Kobe Brown's the as we knew going into the year is probably Missouri's best player.
Yeah.
He's
I
shown
like his
flash.
game.
Yeah, he's shown flashes. He's scored it really well in that SMU game. He rebounded the ball well. He's shooting it well from three. He's probably not a first option 3-point shooter. He's more around the rim. This Missouri team though is going to struggle if they can't make perimeter jump shots, and if their defense is lacking like it was in that UMKC game, their margin for error is so slim. That's the best way you can say it right now with this Missouri team. And I think when you look up and you talk about life in the SEC, the bodies in the SEC, the athleticism, the size, Missouri just doesn't have that. They're a very undersized team. And I think for Conzo Martin, he's going to have to embrace the small ball. I think he's got to embrace that. He has a big in Jordan Wilmore, who has had some good moments, but when he's on the floor, as you know, from a coaching standpoint, I think coaches drool on that in terms of stretching the floor, pick and pop, and putting him in the ball screen. And that's when Missouri really struggles defensively. And Conzo really, has to go small pretty quick out of in that first half. But his team's been a little bit up and down so far. I think when you look at who's going to carry them, it has to be Kobe Brown. And I think Ronnie DeGray would be in this same conversation. The loss to UMKC, you can't give up 80 in your own building, against a team like UMKC. And no knock against Billy Donlan's UMKC Roos. They're really good, actually. I think they're a good team. I'm excited about what they might be able to bring. But UMKC's best player didn't even play well in that game. He had no points in that game, and it's UMKC's best player. What's that say about your defense? And again, it's November. There's a lot to learn as you go through the non-conference slate. Again, they get an overtime win against SMU, so it's good to kind of get that, feel of victory and a hard-fought win. You come back in overtime. But then they turn around and play Florida State and just get annihilated right from the jump. And that's what we're talking about, right? When I think of Missouri, it's the loss to UMKC. You don't just sit there and think, well, they lost to UMKC. That's a bad loss. You think they still have to go up against a lot of big-time competition. Their non-conference schedule is no joke. You got Florida State. They just lost to Wichita State. They go to Liberty. And Liberty's had some salty teams in the past. The teams that you look at them coming off the bus and you think, oh, this could be a night where and then they're the most fundamentally sound, crisp passing, shot-making teams that can shoot you out of a gym if you don't bring, the right mentality. We've seen that so many times. And then obviously Mizzou's got Kansas, Utah, and Illinois in the non-conference. Like that's a tough non-con schedule. And then they open with Kentucky to start league play.
Yeah.
So there's just no margin for error. And you sit there and you think this Missouri team is going to have to find some consistency. Their best offense is in transition. That's where they're at their best. If they can push pace, push tempo, get to the free throw line and make shots, they'll have a chance. But they've struggled in the half court. And when they started the other night against Wisconsin, I believe they were 0 for 12, 0 for 13 from three. You're not going to survive like that. Their defense played okay, but you got to make 3-point shots in the game of basketball in today's modern day. If you don't make the three, it's the great equalizer. If you don't have shot making, you're going to struggle. Your margin for error goes lower, puts more pressure on your defense. And that's where Missouri's at right now. So we'll see where they go. They play Paul Quinn coming up. I believe that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then they go to Liberty on December. Yeah. And then they go to Liberty December 2nd. So I'll be curious where this Missouri team's at, Jeff, when they go to Allen Fieldhouse, because, they're going to have to continue to build and find out, what can they really, they might just be playing 7 when it's all said and done with.
Yeah.
And if you get in foul trouble, you go to that 8th, 9th guy if you have to.
That's not a bad option, man.
It's not. And two, that they're going back to the size conversation, right? We talk about Kobe Brown, and he is by far their best player. He's a guy that can really score. But Amari Davis was another transfer. He's an undersized guard. He can make 3-point shots. He really struggles at the rim to finish out of pick and roll. We just talked about point guard play, right? With Remy Martin and DeJuan Harris. It's tough to identify who's Mizzou's point guard right now. Amari's probably that guy. He's more of a score first point guard. So when you're talking about a team that has to play fast, play in transition, you got to have a lead guard that understands how to get out and run and facilitate and, pick and choose when you're aggressive. That's right. And right now that's kind of been a little bit of a struggle to figure that out. Jaron Coleman's been pretty good for Mizzou. Good rebounder, had a really good game the other night passing the ball.
Yeah, he does a good job of facilitating the ball. Really does.
Yeah, and not shooting a three ball that well. I mean, right now Mizzou's only got two guys that can really shoot the three. That's Kobe and Amari. Yeah. And outside of that, I mean, they're desperate for Javon Pickett to play well. Javon's a veteran, senior, the only senior on this team, and right now he's shooting 18% from three. And that's a struggle. I think his threes, I think 2 of the 3 threes came in the first game of the year, and he's going back right into a slump. When you're a senior and you're struggling and Javon's going to play, but they're just not getting offensive production, and you can lean on your defense so much. It's that famous phrase, right? Great defense. Yeah. If you have great offense, it's going to beat great defense when it comes down to it. And that's what I think Missouri's going to run into a lot. They're going to have those halves where they'll catch fire and they'll get into that 40-point range. But I think right now with what we're seeing from this team, there's going to be a lot of those halves when they're in that 18-point to 20-point, especially if they don't get to the free throw line and they get stagnant. This team against the zone has really struggled. I think offensively, that's a probably keeping Konzo Martin up at night is how are they going to score and how are they going to be productive offensively?
Well, Jerry, obviously I'm a KU guy, and
that's right.
I'm a Kansas City guy, born and raised in this area. So, you talk about K-State, Missouri, KU. So at the end of the day, Jayhawk fans can get mad at me. I mean, I want all those teams to be successful when they're not playing us, because obviously when we play them, and obviously that's why I'm so happy that this border war is getting back together, because that's going to allow them to compete at a high level and bring that border war back together. And we want that border war to be strong. I want Missouri to be strong. I want Missouri to have to give KU a run for their money, because competition brings out the best in everyone. And so just so Jared, all craziness aside, the players players have always had a great respect for each other. I don't think fans understand that. Missouri, KU, K-State, any type of rivalry you'll see, the players have, for the most part, a respect for each other. So I want Missouri to get things going, and I hope they can continue to focus on their transition play. They can do the little things on the defensive end that help them stay in games. And obviously their players put in some extra work, get that 3-point percentage up, whatever it may be, because it makes not only the rivalry stronger, but it makes just college basketball as a whole better too. So if outside of KU, I trust me, I'm still rooting for Missouri. I have friends that went to Missouri. So just when it comes to KU, who I want to win, just like I know who you want to win.
That's right. And Jeff, you said it though, man. I was thinking about this the other day. We were, with the rivalry game coming, I know a lot of the local media, Kansas City Star, a lot of the radio shows here in town are really diving back into those Mizzou Kansas games from when we played in those,
they should,
and picking our brain on those games. And man, to go back and think through some of those games. I mean, especially in 2012, the last year of the Big 12. I mean, those games are, indescribable. Yeah. And I don't think, especially these players that are going to be playing in this game coming up here in a couple weeks, I don't think they really understand what it's like. And it's great to have the rivalry back. And I know this, but I've gotten in arguments with people all over the country that, we just watched the Iron Bowl yesterday. Me and my fiance, we were talking about, Alabama, Auburn football, and she wanted to ask all these questions. I go, look, Mizzou, Kansas has been at this level as well in football, in basketball. There's been some just historic games, and when you look back at the history of the rivalry, and so much is made of Duke and North Carolina and those rivalries in basketball, deservedly so.
Mizzou is up. Mizzou KU is up there, man.
There's someone, and obviously, Kansas is a blue blood. They're a program that's so much success, and Kansas being great is great for the Midwest and great for Kansas City. Coach Self's done such an unbelievable job. And I just sat behind Roy Williams at that Villanova Purdue game, and Coach Williams is shaking hands with everybody, and just the nicest guy ever. And I just made me think back to like his camps and like Roy Williams, building up the Kansas basketball program before Bill Self got there, and the job that Roy did, and it just keeps you tied into the rivalry. Like there was something about seeing Roy, and he wasn't North Carolina Blue, but man, I mean, just like the same guy, and a guy that I Hall of Fame head coach, obviously, but I just remember him in those Kansas teams, right, with Kirk and you and Nick, and like those teams that were so good, and those games that you guys played against Mizzou were just dogfights.
Yeah, everyone
with everyone. Quinn, and, so we have our eras, right, of this rivalry. And although like you said, I want both teams to be good so these games can live up to what we know they are. I do think we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. I think Kansas is just at a different level in terms of competing at the highest level. I know they gave up a tough one to Dayton. You're going to have those hiccups in non-conference play. It'll probably be a game Kansas can look back on in a couple months and think that was a get-right game maybe. Mizzou's still figuring a lot of things out. So we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. But, the fact that we're picking up this podcast, we're going to have a lot of stories coming. We're going to have a lot of interviews coming. It's going to be a lot of fun to really dive into this rivalry and, get to Lawrence and be a part of that game. It'll give me a lot of feelings because last time
you get to get back in the field. Yeah, when have you been in the field house?
I've been for a lot of scouting games.
Well, that's right. So you've been in there. So for Missouri, as a Missouri fan coming in, like
put on the uniform, put on that Missouri.
Maybe we need to put you on get you back in a uniform, huh? You still look like you can play.
All my eligibility's out, man. I was a red shirt, man. Maybe they'll give me like the 6th year COVID year, man. Maybe I'm in there.
I might need to apply for that for real.
That's right. We'd go back in a heartbit, right? We'd throw in the uni.
I'd give this pinky. Just go ahead and chop it off. I'd give that up.
That's right now. Maybe I was talking I went down to see my old teammate Kim English at George Mason. He's head coach there, and we were talking like, man, it's not even the games either. We'd go back and do like a summer pickup run, with our guys, man. We'd go back and if it was one day, we'd be in that
mindset. Yes, man. Those were the times, dude.
Absolutely. All right, Jeff. Well, we'll get out of here. It's a good first show. We'll check back in next week. We'll see. Kansas has a non-conference game coming up, I believe, next Friday. Mizzou's got one on Monday, and then another one on Friday. So we'll see where these teams are at. We're getting closer, man, to Mizzou, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse.
Looking forward to it.
It's back. Have a good one, Jeff.
I get to see you in person too, so that's always good.
That's right, man. It's about time. Long overdue.
You betcha. Well, see you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Bob. Talk to you next week.